Hey guys, it is very early on Sunday morning and we are down at the allotment and looking at my sweet pea, which are all dry and crispy and ready to come out to make way for some late flowering plants. So I thought we would do a quick review of what happened with my sweet pea. For anyone that doesn't know, my name is Peggy and I am growing a cut flower garden here on my allotment in Kanagawa Prefecture, Japan, which is just south of Tokyo in USDA Zone 9B. Thanks for checking out my channel. It's 7:30 in the morning and it's already hot. Crazy. Okay, my sweet pea. What happened? I had two kinds of sweet pea in here. I had a mulberry mix, which was supposed to be a really nice mix of white, dark purple and a kind of grey purple. Which I got from Chiltern Seeds, and then I had a mix of kind of whites and pinks that I just picked up at the local home centre, and neither of them did very much, and this is 100% my fault. So let's review what I did with my sweet pea. Okay, so I started these sweet pea seeds way back at the beginning of last autumn, and to start with they did really well. I have all of my sweet peas. This is a mulberry mixed sweet pea, and these are just your normal sweet pea that I bought at the local shop. Now for these I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that haven't come up, but the ones that have come up are getting huge. Okay, so here are the things that I potted on before. These are my sweet pea, which I'm starting to think are going to need to go in the ground really soon. I am a little bit worried because I was planning on doing this at the beginning of the week, and I brought all my sweet pea down and then I didn't have time. I was clearing out the garden as much as I could and I just didn't have time to get these in the ground. So these have been sitting out for about 4 or 5 days, and it's been cold and they're not looking healthy. They're looking a bit sad, and they were so good. They were doing so well. This guy looks like he's gone. My poor sweet pea. But I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to prep the ground, I'm going to put them in anyway, but I might just come down later on this week and pop a few extra seeds in. I'm still in December, I've still got plenty of time to get these seeds in the ground. These are just the ones I started off at home. So if these fail, I do have other ones that I can put in the ground as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do this anyway. That's the plan. Oof, they're looking a bit sad, aren't they? Okay, so here is one of my not very happy looking sweet pea. Brown and crusty. But I do have new shoots starting to come in all over the place. There's another one. So I'm hoping that some of these will still be viable, and like I say, I have more growing on at home. My going oh so slow sweet pea are still going oh so slow. And they're refusing to hang on to this netting that I've put up as well. They're just sitting right below it and kind of spreading out sideways. Now that does mean it's good. I'm getting nice bushy ones, but they're just going so slowly. And this is the allotment plot just down from mine. And look how big his sweet pea are. And they've got really pretty flowers on them as well. Okay guys, so let's start here with my sweet pea. Now you can see that my sweet pea have finally started to put on some height. It took them a really long time to get going, but they've got height and we're starting to get some flowers on them. Now I have two types of sweet pea that I planted in here. I have some slightly fancy ones that I got from Chiltern Seeds. That is a mulberry mix. It's supposed to be this kind of nice dark purple, light grey purple and a white mix. And then I have ones that I just got from my local garden centre, which are bog standard sweet pea. And of course the first ones that have come up are the bog standard sweet pea, which is a little bit disappointing. And the most disappointing thing about this is that they seem to have very little fragrance. I mean, there's a bit there, maybe when you've got a big bunch of them, there's going to be a bit more of a scent to these, but they're coming through not with a great scent. But having said that, they are, if I cut this one, which is ready to come, giving me really nice long stems on them, which is great for arranging. Okay, so I started these sweet pea seeds way back at the beginning of last autumn, and to start with they did really well. They came up so well actually. I was really, really excited about them, and I started to worry that they were going to get a bit root bound because they were getting really big. They were starting to climb up the inside of my little seed pod, and I thought, these are going too fast. And then I noticed that my next door neighbour, who has quite a bigger garden than I do, was planting out his sweet pea, and I thought, well, you know, I'm gonna have to put a cover on. I'm getting eaten by mosquitoes. Okay, I'm back. I thought, well, he's lived here a lot longer, he knows the area better, and maybe he knows his garden better than I know my allotment. And, you know, microclimates are different everywhere. So I saw him put his sweet pea out, and I thought, right, that's it, I'm gonna get these sweet pea in the garden. So I came down, I built this frame, I weeded out this patch because it hadn't been cleared. I put down fertilizer, I put down new compost, I got it all ready. And then I ran out of time because I have 3 children. I have very limited time that I can actually spend down on the allotment each time I'm here. And I simply ran out of time that day. And so I had to leave my sweet pea sitting out. Now, I had been opening my seed pod a little bit during the day, but really I hadn't hardened off my plants well enough. And so they got left out, and that week the temperature really plummeted. It got much, much colder than it had been for almost the month previous. And the sweet pea were sitting out here in their pots with no protection, having been used to the seed pod, and they just got shocked. And by the time I came down a few days later to try and put them in the ground, they were a crispy, crunchy mess. They just didn't like it. But I optimistically thought, hey, maybe they'll rally. So I planted them in anyway, but it very quickly became obvious that they weren't going to survive at all. So I kind of thought, right, I can't salvage these. I'll leave them in. Maybe the roots will put up more shoots later, whatevs. I left them in and I reseeded. And those seeds seemed to do nothing for a really, really long time. They just sat in the ground and didn't do anything. And finally a few shoots came up, but they were taking such a long time, and the ones that I'd planted in pots and started at home came up so quickly and grew so vigorously so quickly that it was really frustrating that the ones that I put in the ground didn't really do anything. But finally they started to climb up and climb up and climb up, and again they didn't like the cold flashes we were getting. The temperature changes very quickly here, and it would be really, really nice and warm, and then it would be really cold very, very quickly. And so the shoots died back and then came back up again, and then died back and came back up again, and it kind of went on for a while. And then they just kind of did nothing, and it got really, really hot, and they started to die back again. So I took a few cuttings off of them, and the cuttings I got had nice long stems on them. They were just nowhere near the amount of flowers that I was expecting off of these. So I'm really disappointed I didn't get them. The ones that came up mostly were the ones that I bought from the shop, and they seem to have no scent to them at all, which is strange for sweet pea. And one of the main reasons people grow them is because they've got such a nice scent, and this just didn't. So yeah, they just didn't work at all. But I'm not giving up on them because it was my fault. And at the time that these were failing, everyone in the allotments around me had really nice sweet pea growing in their gardens. And so I asked my lovely old lady that is my allotment neighbour what she'd done, and she said she just direct seeds every autumn, puts them straight into the ground, and the seeds acclimatise and come up really nicely, and that's what everyone around here does. Now obviously they're growing different variety of sweet pea because they're all growing for food as opposed to flower, but I think the same applies. So this year, instead of starting in pots, I'm just going to put them straight in the ground in autumn and see if that does any better. But I did learn a few things. First is my choice. I really liked the mulberry ones, and as they've come up, it's been mostly the dark purple, which were the ones I liked. I would have quite liked some of the grey ones. None of them came up. I liked them. The other ones, the kind of baby pink colour, that was a panic buy because I didn't have enough seeds, or I didn't have as many seeds as I wanted, and it was a bit of a panic buy, and it was all they had in the shop, and I bought them, and I shouldn't have, because as they've come up, I don't like them. Like I say, they don't have a scent, and I don't like the colour, and because I don't like the colour, I have nothing else in the garden that matches that, so I'm finding it very hard. I was finding it very hard to put them into displays anyway, because they weren't of the same colour palette or the same tone, and they just kind of looked a bit weird. So I now know that it's better to just not. If I don't have the seeds, I'm not growing that flower. Wait till next season. Just be patient. I'm not very good at that. So I won't be doing that again. I'm not going to buy flowers just for the sake of having something in the ground, because then when it comes up, I don't use it, and it's just a waste of time and energy and seeds. So that's my first lesson. The second thing I've learned is my positioning. Now, I put my sweet pea here because last year I had my sunflower in the front row, down there. And they very quickly grew up really tall and shaded everything out, and it meant that I got no plants in the second row of my garden last year. And so I said, right, all the tall stuff will go at the back of the garden. But I feel like this has got shadier. Above me are plum trees. Here are my plum trees. And these have grown a lot. Now, I was speaking to somebody else on the allotment, and they said they're going to come down and cut these because it used to be the old guy that owned these houses would cut them, but he's not around anymore. And so nobody has kind of taken over that job. So they are going to come and cut these trees back. But it does mean that for this season, this has been a lot shadier than I was expecting it to be. And so next year I am going to put my sweet pea somewhere else, because I do feel like they weren't getting as much sunshine as they would have liked early in the season, and that's maybe why it took them so long to germinate and so long to grow. So next year I will be putting them at the front of the garden, because I've realised that if they stay like this, again, they don't actually create that much shade, and because it's spring in my garden, when hopefully these are blooming, and then I'm going to rip them out a lot earlier, because I'm hoping that next year they'll come up earlier, so they'll be finished earlier, so I can pull them out earlier. There won't actually be that much in the garden yet for them to shade out. So I'll definitely be putting them in the front of the garden next year, choosing my varieties better and just looking after them better, and making sure that I am direct seeding them in autumn to make sure that hopefully I get flowers. Because I was really disappointed that I didn't get these. I really thought I would have them to go with some of my tulip or my ranunculus and stuff, and I didn't, and so those flowers looked a bit sparse, because I was planning on using this as a greenery as well. I like the little twizzly bits that come out, so you can use them as a kind of foliage, and I just didn't have that at all, and instead they've just taken up a lot of room in the garden. So I'm now going to pull this out and put in some other plants. So this is some of the mulberry, which has started to come through and is really pretty. Got another one here. And this is one of the ones I picked up from my local home centre. I actually feel a little bit bad that I'm pulling these out today, mosquito, because honestly, that's the most flowers I've ever had off of these sweet pea at once. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 stems in bloom. Now the stems are about this big, but still it's the most I've had off of this plant. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of weeding first though, because I have these in the garden. This is shiso, which is a Japanese herb. It's traditionally used with sushi. You quite often find your sushi wrapped in this because it helps with the fishy smell, helps keep things fresh. But yeah, they put it in salads as well, but it's quite a bitter tasting herb. But it's also rampant, and this is obviously a seed that has flown in from one of the other allotments, because quite a lot of people are growing. This is my next door neighbour's allotment, by the way, which is really good. Look at all this sweet corn. But a lot of the other allotments have shiso, and so I am guessing that this is just some seed that has transferred over and planted itself in my garden. So I need to pull that up and get rid of that first. Now, I'm not entirely sure what that is, because I planted Chinese lantern seeds and I didn't think any of them have come up. And I don't think that's the right shape for the Chinese lantern leaf. If anyone is any the wiser, then please let me know. But I'm not going to pull that out today. I'm just going to leave that and let it do its thing. Okay, so what am I going to put in here? Well, in this row already, in front of my sweet pea, I have some Chinese forget-me-not, some drumstick scabious, some hibiscus flowers, some ramosa, I think that's what that one is. And I did have some cute little orange dwarf flowers down here, but they weren't really doing anything, and so I checked the bulbs and they were all gone. I don't know if they were just bad bulbs or if I've got some kind of pest problem going on that had eaten the bulbs, but the bulb skins were there and they were just full of mud, which makes me think it was maybe beetle or woodlouse or something has actually eaten away those bulbs. So I now have an extra patch down at the front here. My plan is to pull out this sweet pea, and I am going to put, check my wee map of my plan, I'm going to put in some amaranthus. I've got coral fountain, which I didn't grow last year. My amaranth last year got huge and big, and it was way more than I could ever have used, and it kind of took over this whole half of the garden. So this year I'm only going to put in 4, and I'm going to try and keep them cut because they were getting too big for me to be using. You should pinch your amaranth or you'll end up with stems that are like sweet corn stems. That's what I'm looking at over there. They're broomsticks. So you do want to pinch your amaranth, but I am going to be more careful this year to make sure that I'm actually cutting it at a much earlier stage than I was last year. So I'm going to put in them. I'm going to put in some Chinese lanterns to hopefully give me something to go at the end of the season, and I really like those, and I'm hoping they'll dry out and give me nice little seed pods. I'm going to put in some of this, which is Mina Robata Jungle Queen. I've only just realised that it's called Jungle Queen, which makes me worry that it's actually going to get really, really big. But again, this is one that is late planted and late flowering, so hopefully that will be nice towards the end of the season, and it's kind of got those autumny colours in as well. I also have some pink pokers that I've started at home, and I'm actually going to put them in, I think, at the front. I'm undecided. I might put amaranth all at the front so that it doesn't shade anything else out. It's only competing with itself. And then put the smaller ones along the side. Although now that this is Jungle Queen, it might not be that small. Does it say how big it grows? 30 to 50 centimetres. Can't be that jungly, right? But that's the plan. Take this out, get these autumn ones in. So I started my pink pokers at home, and they are looking a nice size to get in. These ones are looking a bit sad. This just happened yesterday. They were looking really genki until then. I also have my amaranth that I started at home, and again, this was looking really good until yesterday, but a lot of it has kind of wilted back in the heat, and you can see it's starting to get root bound, so it really wants to get in the ground. So I'm hoping that when I put this in, it does rally a bit, but if all of them don't survive, I'm not so sad about that, because like I said, they got massive and unwieldy last year. There you go, pretty much my first and last sweet pea of the year. How sad is that? That mulberry colour would have been so pretty if only I could have got more of it. Next year. We'll do better next year. Okay, we have pink pokers in. Some amaranth in, and my Chinese lanterns planted over there, and my Mino Robata in there. And that is that section all filled. Okay, so my sweet pea weren't the success that I wanted them to be, but I can hopefully still get something out of this tiny little patch of the garden so that it's not been a complete waste. I'm really glad that I've got this filled up, and that hopefully something will grow from what I put in today. If you want to follow along and see how the garden does for the rest of the season, remember to hit the subscribe button below. If you want to see what I do with the flowers that I cut from here, then you can check out my Instagram, which is From the Witch's Garden, and there's a link to that in the description below. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.